Today we're going to talk about the W-4 changes in 2019 and 2020. So as you know, in 2019, there's a such thing as a allowance. So that's when you say, like when you hear people talk, I claim 2, I claim 0, I claim 9 and get a huge no withholding, or I claim 0 and I put a lot into it. Um, that is all changing in 2020, starting in January 1st. Anybody hired as a new hire will not be able to do allowances. They will have to do it a new way. So let me just show you the old way. Should be very familiar to everybody. You got your demographic area, name, address, social security number. Box 5 is where you actually put your allowances. Like everybody kind of has a magic number in their head, and they say, "Oh, I claim 2," and if they get hired at a new job, they just put 2. 6 is additional withholding if you want to add money to it to make it a little higher or whatever. 7 is if you want to be exempt, you put in exempt right here, and then you sign it. And then if you scroll down, you'll see another page where you can actually fill out a worksheet to see what you should be putting down as an allowance. And that's the 2019 and previous way. So that's the way it used to be. Now 2020, it's going to change. Now notice the name, Employees Withholding Allowance Certificate. Now the new one in 2020 is the Employees Withholding Certificate. They took out allowances. The first step is the exact same thing. You got your name, you got your social security number, you got your address. You check if you're single or married filing separate, married filing joint, or head of household. The last one I want to point out, it was single, married, but withholding at a higher single rate. Note, if married filing separate, check married, but withholding at higher single rate. So this sounds more confusing than just easily saying single or married filing separate, married filing joint, or head of household. And then you go to step 2. If you see step 2 through 4, only if they apply to you. So step 2 is if you have multiple jobs or spouse works. So if you are married and your spouse works, you want to make sure to fill this section out. If you have 2 different jobs, then you want to make sure to fill this one out. Now there's 3 ways you can fill this part out. A, you can get a really accurate withholding if you go to www.irs.gov/W4app. And you got to have your pay slip ready. You have to have your current situation. You got to know how much federal withholding you put in all year. Everything. You have to basically know all your taxes. And it looks like you're filing taxes when you go to the website. Check it out. They ask kind of like TurboTax questions. They ask what your what your filing status is, if you're single, married, head of household. Then they ask you how much money you make for the year, how much your spouse makes for the year. If you have a second job, how much you make from that job, how much do you withhold, what's your current withholding at, what is the latest date? If it's December 13th was your last check, you have to put that down. It's a lot of work, but it's very accurate. B, use the multiple jobs worksheet on page 3. So that is a worksheet that you can just type in. Now it's going to give you a rough accurate withholding, meaning it's close to accurate, but it's not perfect. So it could be a little off in either way, either direction. So you can a very little variance, as you can have too much withholding and get a small refund back, or you can have too less of withholding and pay a little bit in, probably with no interest, because you have to owe a lot of money to even start interest, and you can get out of that. C, if you want to be safe and you don't want to go through all this crap, you can check a box right here, and that's just like the current married filing 0 or single filing 0, so no exemption. It's the same thing as that. You're being withheld at the max rate for that situation if you're married or if you're single, and if you have 2 jobs. If you don't have two jobs or a spouse that works, you can skip step 2. Step 3, claim dependents. If you have a child under 17, you put 2,000 here, or you times it how many children you have. So if you have 6 children, that's 12,000 here. Multiply the number of other dependents. Now, the definition of other dependents is if you're claiming a relative, like a sister, brother, aunt. Yes, you can do that. It's detailed in the pub. You can actually do that. A lot of people think you can't, but the definition is if it's a relative, like a sister, brother, and if they lived with you half the year and you supported them and they're under $3,500 at the end of the year, then you can claim them. You can actually even claim a friend as a dependent. Let's say your friend lived with, but now if it's not a relative, they have to live with you all year, all 12 months, and they have to make less than, I think it was their deduction, but I could be wrong. If they make less than, to be safe, let's just say 3,500. If they make less than that and they lived with you all year, you can claim them as a dependent. You're not going to get a child tax credit, or you're not going to get an EIC under them, but you do get a small credit. And that would go here. You add those amounts, you put that in number 3. Section 4 is optional. Section 4 describes other income. If you plan on selling stuff on eBay, or if you're planning on any kind of Schedule C or rental income or interest, dividends, you can put it in 4A. Deductions, if you expect to claim deductions other than your standard deduction, such as like on the Schedule A, if you itemize, you can put that here, 4B. And then if you want any extra additional withholding, you put it right here under 4C. And then you sign it. And then that's it. It's more complicated, but it's not rocket science. So that's the new W-4. I hope this helps, and I hope it helps your employer or your employee, whoever depends on looking at this. And there's more to follow. You can ask questions in the comments.